One of the most significant announcements in the Union Budget 2017 was giving affordable housing and infrastructure status. And this bonanza was received with much enthusiasm by the real estate sector. Combine this with credit-linked subsidy scheme and increase in carpet area for homes eligible for CLSS, it was amply clear that this government means business when it comes to creating affordable housing stock. Yet as we approach Budget 2018, we find the industry has a new list for the Finance Minister. Today on Urban Reality, we find out how valid are some of these demands. The top on the list is to reduce GST on under-construction houses, specifically for affordable housing. What's the rationale? Second question industry has been asking, and of course a pertinent one, why have two taxes at all? Should stamp duty not be removed? And finally, why despite all that was done in the last year's union budget, has the private sector participation been so slow in affordable housing? Joining me today on the show are Gitambar Anand, CMD ATS Infrastructure, Neeraj Bansal, Head Real Estate and Construction KPMG, Jakshay Shah, MD Savvy Infrastructure and President of CREDAI, and Ashwini Kumar Huda, Deputy MD India Bulls Housing Finance. My first question to you, Gitambar, big shot in the arm by the government in 2017 to affordable housing. Yet, if I reel out the numbers to you from private sector, launch only 55,000 units under rupees 40 lakhs in this year in top 7 cities. This is actually even below the number of 2016 at 78,000. Why?
So you see, Manisha, in the budget last year, affordable housing was given an infrastructure status. But what has that resulted in? Nothing really, because there's no direction from the RBI to the banks to qualify certain projects as infrastructure because they're doing affordable housing and give them cheaper capital. Nothing of the sort has actually translated into action on ground. Now, till these things don't happen, you will not see private sector being overtly enthusiastic to get into this space. Coming into ATIB, where you get an income tax reduction. Now, limiting the size of the house to 60 square meters is another deterrent, because there are locations where people want bigger houses, at least 90 square meters carpet area. We have asked for at least 120 square meters of carpet area because, you know, it's an aspiration for everybody to buy a bigger house. Number 3, in ATIBA, there's a clause which says you must actually use at least 80% of the FSI available in smaller towns and 90% in bigger towns to avail of the concession under ATIBA. So therefore, in smaller towns, let me tell you, it is not an FSI game. People don't like to live in high-rise apartments where you can do an FSI of even 2.5 or 3. Okay. They would rather go for a horizontal development. These things are limiting, you know, so there has to be a practical approach to these changes that the government brought into the last budget. And let me assure you, these small changes do happen. GST, of course, as you mentioned, is of course very, very important. All right, Jakshay, is that the big concern? The fact that it's not translating to any real action at the bank disbursement level to affordable housing, to private sector?
Of course, to add on that, Manisha, to encourage the private developers, we need to have a real startup for the real estate. We are all talking about the startup. There is no startup for real estate in India today for affordable housing. How you able to give a cheaper loan rate for the land purchase? And coming to your point of the Mumbai, are we going to construct a vertical slum by giving a 30 square meter advantages to them, to the developers? So we have to think. So we are creating an ecosystem, but we are forgetting to how exactly the grooming this industry wants now, because we have a triple whammy effect in this year 2017. Most of the industry had only one, the GST, and everybody else, they are so, I think, hurt by that. But we had GST demonetization and of course the RERA.
Okay, I get that. So you're saying that the attention is simply not there, the policy is there in a big way, but the 30 to 60 square meter carpet area, which actually defines the real affordable housing, is not linked to the CLSS carpet area, which of course for middle income group has been increased, but for economically weaker and LID still remains as 30 to 60 square meters. Now, if I just, Neeraj, I'm going to come to you. If I just look at that overall 40 lakh figure, I know that most private developers are only being able to launch houses at a pricing unit of 25 to 40 lakh rupees. But if I see that segment, the absorption has been quite phenomenal. I mean, 73,000 units were absorbed in 2017, so there were actually more numbers which were bought than they were launched, and 80,000 in 2016. So despite this pent-up demand, and everyone knows the game is really big, 60,000 crores is the number which is being flashed around, we are not being able to get it right, and we're leaving it to the government to just make all these homes, which is never going to be enough.
True. If you look at the top 4 cities in terms of the availability of homes under 30 lakhs, under 40 lakhs, so that, in terms of unsold inventory, that's the lowest number. So we've got 8 to 10% of the total inventory, which is in this bracket of under 30 to 40 lakh kind of a bracket over there. So there, of course, there is demand, and then of course, supply has been very limited as well in that. Clearly, I think it's already been said on the program. If you see that awareness is a big challenge. So from a demand point of view, while there is a demand, but with RERA coming in board, new project launches are not feasible, and the projects which are ongoing also had to make a lot of shifts and challenges around it. So the industry was actually into a kind of a rebuild mode, and also in a mode to kind of reflect and say how we kind of deal with the existing projects more. And it has taken a huge amount of time, with the government changes and clarifications coming out around it. So clearly, from our new launches in this segment as well, we've had challenges around that. Overall, in the real estate sector also, the launches have been much lower than what it was in the last year. But if you look at the absorption, while absorption figures are lower, but overall 1.6 million, let's say, houses got absorbed, 160,000 in that, compared to 1.1, which was basically launched around it.
Okay.
So yeah, so I think the main thing is to say that to boost this affordable housing supply, how the entire ecosystem has to come together, and from an awareness point of view, whatever incentives your government is giving, are they really understood by the consumer?
By the buyer or the consumer? All right. Here's my question. Through the year, Gitambar, the government has been trying very hard to get private sector come in and build more affordable homes. And when I'm talking affordable homes here, I'm talking about 40 lakhs and below. In fact, the real affordable homes would be below 25 lakhs. So you had 6 PPP models, you talked about CLSS, you also talked about taking government land, the DBT model, mixed development, cross-subsidized housing. It seems to me that the government is trying, at least by giving public sector land and doing a PP model, scale that problem of expensive land. Why is CREDAI not coming forward in any of these 6 models? What is the issue here?
So effectively, Manisha, there is, you see, it's just been announced, so it takes time. We are coming with a legacy here, and there's a lot of baggage that real estate has. Now, for us to actually get the show on the road and partner with government, because government has the right intent, but getting this going is another exercise altogether.
Okay.
So they have these policies.
But these 6 PPP models are exciting enough for you?
They are, but like, government land, doing a JV on a government land, it is still, there's no concrete form to it yet. There is government land, there are takers. Now, how are they going to auction it to the private sector? So we've been giving proposals to the government. This is how you can do it in a very transparent manner, wherein you get affordable housing, you get EWS, LIG in the same vicinity. But these have to be, it hasn't taken off yet, really.
It hasn't taken off. So it's got announced, but it hasn't taken off. Mr. Ashwini Kumar Huda, my question to you is that, with that big bang announcement in 2017 budget, just seemed a dream budget for affordable housing. Yet when I look at private sector's participation in launching housing units which are below 40 lakhs, they're pretty much a fraction. I mean, the total launch is 55,000 units compared to what even the government has sanctioned under PMAY, which is over 37 lakhs. So what do you think, as a leading home finance company, where is the issue here?
So from a housing finance perspective, the subsidy is not able to reach a lot of people who are buying these houses on the peripheral areas of large metros, because they are already owning a house somewhere in the country in their hometown, which is a pakka house. So while government has been kind to increase the size of the apartment from 90 square meter to 110 square meter and from 110 to 150 square meter for upper mid income housing, what they need to really look at is you know, if somebody has migrated to a large metros where most of the people find jobs today, then why should they be not getting the benefit of the subsidy because they own a house in their small town back home? It may be ancestral property or something. So that, I think, is something like 50-60% of the demand which does not get this targeted subsidy, and we would expect government to look into this issue closely and then you know, get it out of the way so more demand can be generated. On the supply side, I think it takes time. Let's admit that the whole new subsidy scheme got notified somewhere in March and April, so we are only 9 months into this. Real estate proposals have a long gestation period, and identifying the land, getting into land transaction, these are very thin margin business on the affordable housing segment.
Right.
And while the corporate tax has been done away with, which makes them even with lower margins very appealing to a lot of large developers, but it still takes time. So I am hopeful that as I hear the various developers I talk to which have very large plans to enter into affordable housing, so I am not really in the camp that believes that we are behind the curve. We would see in this calendar year and substantially more in next calendar year a huge supply of these affordable housing.
Okay.
Yes, as you know, other people have mentioned that there is a scope for PPP to you know, unlock a lot of land parcel, and that's more relevant from a perspective that Indian cities still do not have a concept of affordable housing in heart of the city.
Right.
So whatever affordable housing is happening is on the peripheral areas of the city. So there is, if government can unlock city-centric land with government or with public sector undertakings, then you know, land development for affordable housing can develop in the city.
I think you've really put a context to this whole discussion, and this entire thing of the fact that CLSS or the subsidy is only available to the first-time home buyer, and the migrant population would have at least some ancestral property, is something that probably the union budget needs to take a very close look at. Because if I look at the figures, interest subsidy which has been given so far is only 1,646 crores. I mean, that's really not enough. We'll come back. There are two big other issues to discuss, which is GST, bringing GST down from 12% to 6%, at least for affordable housing, if not for the entire sector, and also doing away with stamp duty. Now, will anyone bell that cat in this budget? Stay with us. $11 crore houses will be required at an investment of $2 trillion to meet PM Modi's mission of housing for all by 2022. So no wonder, starting 2017 union budget right up to now, the big buzzword in the corridors of the housing ministry to the players of India's real estate sector has been affordable housing. The one big demand for this year's budget is at least bring down GST from 12% to 6%, if not for the entire sector, but for under construction homes under affordable housing. Gitambar Anand, why? I mean, right after the GST announcement, CREDAI, Naredco both came out saying 12% is actually fairly decent number. Now, why are you demanding a cut?
See, GST is an evolving subject. If the government can cut GST rates, understanding that they've made some miscalculation somewhere, why can't industry also say that this rate is not correct?
Back and for a lower number.
Why not?
Okay.
So I'll give you a mathematical calculation back of the envelope. If my construction cost for affordable housing is say 1,500 rupees, at an 18% GST, it's about would be about 240 rupees a square foot. And if I'm being, you know, I'm selling something at 4,000 rupees a square foot and I'm charging GST at 12% from my customer, that's 480 rupees. So where's this surplus GST going? It's going to the government. So what we are saying is, please rationalize it to a 6% with input credit. There's nothing wrong in that, Manisha. And it's there for everyone to see. It's a very fair calculation.
Okay. All right. So you're saying it's a fair calculation, but is it also because, you know, the balance sheets are now a little bit stretched under construction, or the arbitrage between under construction homes. No one's buying them or doesn't want to buy them because of GST, and ready to move in property has become the favorite of the buyers.
Not really.
That's not the issue.
And it's not GST which is promoting people to buy ready to move in properties. It is the price factor which is the deciding thing, and the credibility of the developer.
All right, so let's move on to stamp duty. Jakse, this is asking for the moon. Stamp duty, already the states are reeling, but why should stamp duty be done away with?
See, any business has to grow. If there is entry and exit load should be minimum or maybe rationalized. That we all know. Since last a decade or maybe more than that, we are trying, and even the government is also telling that stamp duty should not be more than 3%. That is a national bill, the National Housing Bill Bank also, and everybody is telling. Unfortunately, in some part of the India, there is also to 13 to 14%. So there is always a burden to customer, not to the developers. Government has to understand this. And of course, there are some property or some land, because of the stamp duty, there is some social economical problem also. People are not going for the registration. There are some problems, there are some fly-by operators also
so
jump into that property.
13 to 14%, Jakse, is just too high. I'm not sure whether it is that high in some parts of the country. But Neeraj, do you think that it's just, asking for the moon from the finance minister? At this state, he's still grappling with the loss of revenues that states have incurred because of GST, and having made good of that, or making good that, now say stamp duty has to go. It's one of the highest earners for state exchequers.
No, getting the stamp duty out is a hurricane task, to kind of get that going, because you will have to get all the states to agree to that, which is a very difficult proposition. And for GST also, we've seen that, that while the GST Council has representation, it has taken rounds of meetings and discussions. Still, we had changes to be made in that. So stamp duty reduction is possible state by state, and total elimination is something which would be a very difficult step over there. We saw that with RERA implementation as well, how varied it has been while it was a central order and central act as well. So at the same time, when you look at the point that stamp duty, of course, needs to get rationalized and has to be reduced in that manner, in which it encourages that the more and more the transactions are also being done in an appropriate manner over there.
So
while there is an element of non-compliance with the stamp duty as well.
Do you agree with the industry that just for affordable housing at least, that the GST rate should be brought down, and maybe they can even look at making stamp duty a very nominal 3%, as Mr. Anand has said?
Why affordable for everything?
All right, let me get Neeraj to answer that first. Okay, Neeraj, go ahead.
So I would say that completely second that, because of a simple calculation, the fact that this industry is the one which is consuming so much of supply from the cement and steel and glass and so many other materials around it. Movement in this industry would really kind of change a lot of the demand patterns for so many other industries. So government would end up gaining quite a lot with that
All
aspect
right,
of it.
the multiplier effect will come in, because you will get much more stock of affordable housing being constructed. Gitambar, I know you wanted to come in here, but if your demand of 30 square meters to 60 is met, then everything, a lot of the stock anyway becomes affordable. So maybe that would be
demand. We are asking for bigger sizes, more than 60 in smaller towns, and at least 60 in places like Mumbai.
Which is all that you will build then. Most.
But
I mean, you're not building a large.
Would you not like to buy?
Okay. Fair enough. Why not? Okay, let me get Mr. Huda in as well. Mr. Huda, one important point which we need to note is the alarm bells which have been ringing around the loans extended to the real affordable home buyer, which is under 25 lakhs, in some cases even under 10 lakhs. Moody ICRA report has actually said that this could be the next threat to banks and housing finance companies. Are you worried that we are going a bit too aggressive in our enthusiasm for housing for all?
Well, I would see this to be a cyclical trend where a part of business is showing higher delinquency. First of all, I do not see it as a threat to larger system, because the large housing finance company only cater to white collar worker. Their average ticket size is around 25 lakhs. The average income of that segment is around 10 lakh rupees a year, family income. So that continues to, you know, the worst guy has 70-75 basis point NPAs, and the good players have 20-25 basis point. So I don't think so that is impacted at all. What the ICRA report refers and other reports refer to the very small home where the average ticket size is between 2 to 10 lakh rupees. The reason that there is a spike up is because the player who do these loans are trying to cater to a segment who does not qualify otherwise for financing, and by doing this financial inclusion, the underlying premise is if it is house, even if the underlying income is not stable, or if underlying property does not have proper legal technical title, in that case still the person borrowing will pay. I think it's a new initiative taken by a lot of new NBFCs and housing finance companies, and I fully support their view that over a period of time even this lower section of population is credit worthy. However, demonetization and subsequent GST has rocked a lot of very small boats. So you could see very small businessman, petty shopkeeper, the profile of very small businessman getting impacted due to these structural changes,
but
and it is that which is coming out.
But it will settle
Absolutely.
down. Is
so
that your...
there has to be a system.
No, I'm very glad to hear that, because you know the alarm bells. Yeah, go ahead.
And yeah, the point I am trying to make is that the country has to mature to that level of financial inclusion where the small guy also has access to money. So yes, I am with you that this will improve over a period of time. There is a cyclicity, but this whole funding of smaller section, more and more money coming to chase funding to this section is a very good news for country as a whole.
All right, I'm so glad to hear a complete counter argument. In fact, home loans have been the safest portfolio for all banks and NBFCs, and if this is just a short-term blip because of demonetization which has affected informal trade, then we can just hope that, you know, the numbers will look much better. It's only loans up to 2 lakhs where you do see an NPA ratio increasing. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this special. Let's see what 1st February brings for the sector. I'm sure there will be some good news in store. Goodbye from me, and thanks so much for watching.